Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live for a Chargers film review. It's been a minute since we've done this actual show because the Chargers were on a bye week and then played a horrible game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's been about 3 weeks since we've done the film review show. Excited to dive into all of the takes from this week. So I think there's two really important ones, and then we'll find some unsung heroes, things that were real and fake and stuff like that. So it should be a fun one tonight. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing well. I promise we don't just dodge film review episodes because it's a loss. The Jags one was just such a specifically bad loss that there's no reason to even look at that. We did, but there's no reason for a film review. This was a little bit more fun.
Yeah, this one's a lot more fun. We did not do Jags film review just because it was like bye week and we're kind of like trying to move on a little bit. But we try and always stick to these. We know that you guys like them and we love doing them, frankly. And this is some of my favorite content that we put out each week. So if you're new here, again, we'll dive into two big narratives of the week. We'll find some unsung heroes from the All-22, as well as talking about what is real or fake. Before we get to that point, of course, I have to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast and every episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Obviously, we've talked about this before, but PrizePicks is very simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least two player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks is also able to get you action on football, basketball, whatever, in 40-plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks now is offering a stack feature, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you want more on Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, whatever, Drake May, if that's your new quarterback crush, and you want to select pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, now you can do all of that in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. So go download the app today, PrizePicks app today. Use the code GUILTY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code GUILTY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Okay, I think we're both on the same page this week about the biggest narrative from this game coming away is Jesse Minter and his post-bye adjustments. So we highlighted a few of these after the game. We talked a little bit about some of the changes, and then we sit here and watch the film, look at some of the numbers. And so looking at some of these, so one big change, Deion Henley had 16 snaps on the edge on Sunday against the Raiders. That was a career high. There's been some other games that have been like, 10 to 12 or something like that. 16 in a game where the Chargers dominated the time of possession. That's a lot. There were at least 5 run blitzes that I charted in my own film watching. So PFF doesn't chart run blitzes, but that's what I saw. There were multiple occasions where the Chargers were playing these kind of funky, defensive fronts where they would have 2 edge rushers on one side, 2 defensive tackles on another side, and then Derwin or Deion or somebody else, sometimes even a different edge rusher on that opposite side. They had the highest blitz rate in a neutral game script of the season at 35.7%. Their other higher games that they've blitzed a lot more have been the blowout games, the Commanders, the Colts, and the Jaguars. So this game was a positive script for the Chargers. They blitzed a ton. As a result, they had the highest cover 0 percentage of the season, 15%. That one, according to Mr. Daniel Popper. So a bunch of different changes. Again, nothing like whole scale from a philosophical standpoint. But for you, Tyler, looking at the numbers and the tape, what was your big takeaway of what these changes allowed Jesse Minter and the defense to do?
Play with less thinking, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but with someone like, I think in particular, Deion Henley, given how featured he was, not obviously he's thinking, he's doing a lot of processing, and I thought in this game he did look better overall processing in coverage as well. Now that the Raiders have a ton of stuff going on, they fired their offensive coordinator. There's no crazy stuff going on in front of them. There's no Liam Cohen walking through that door for this game. I thought he processed a lot better, but it just felt like they were able to. One of the things that Jesse Minter or Dan Henley said 2 years ago was that, look, we just want to simplify everything, play like as smart as we can without overwhelming ourselves. And I think Minter right now is kind of looking at some of these little linebacker play in particular and going, it's just not working out the way I had envisioned. I think that we had all envisioned Dan Henley playing this season and Perryman and Troy Dye and Gino Colson, obviously, but
yeah,
not working the same way we thought. So what can we do to maybe put them in a position to succeed in a role that they can succeed in? And then how do we make up for not having that player in that same spot? So I think with Henley in particular, just allowed him to be aggressive and allowed him to go for it and show off so much of what he can do, because he is a great blitzer. He is great in terms of athleticism. There's so much he can do, and showing off that was great. What I thought was the best thing that they did, which is what we had asked for, is add more Tony Jefferson. And Tony several times, if Henley is that guy playing up, you look and it's Perryman next to Tony Jefferson. I don't recall how many plays that was, at least half a dozen, but there were several plays. And I don't know if that's necessarily just is that always going to happen thing or just this game thing. But if you're bringing Dan Henley up and putting him in a great position to succeed, then behind them is someone in Tony Jefferson who you and I think is just seeing everything so well. And at minimum is playing like the run defense and everything so well. And then setting him on run blitzes as well. That's such a good marriage of 1-2. And that's before, of course, you get to the pass rush. And I'll maybe let you get into that. But I just think watching Deion Henley and Derwin and Tony Jefferson and Molden and these guys, what they were doing and mixing and matching the way they did, to almost 75% of their plays, they had a player up outside the tackles that was a DB or a linebacker. On the one hand, it's Geno Smith and that line sucks and Geno Smith can't process and there's not a great, group of receivers for him to throw to. So it's possible that's maybe just a one game thing. But to me, it just looked like for the first time in a minute, and definitely since, the Jags game, which was not great, these guys were just flying. And that's the best version of this Chargers defense. It looked better than it did against the Raiders in week 2. And I hope this is here to stay. Maybe not to the same extent. I don't know if they'll do the most of the season again.
Yeah.
Just thought having Henley, Derwin, those guys play this specific role, just for them specifically, without even getting into what the Raiders did and what they couldn't do, it just looked like they felt comfortable doing it.
Yeah, I think you definitely saw the players, react in kind to it. And I think from a schematic or strategic standpoint, the biggest thing I liked is just the additional resources added to the run game. And I think this regime has a very specific way where they want to play the run, and it's a lot of lighter boxes, and it's a lot of we trust our safeties and our slots and our linebackers to rally and tackle, but I think also they trust their defensive line to get off blocks. But I think if there's anything this Chargers defensive front has struggled with, it's those 12 personnel, 2 tight ends or 6 offensive lineman sets, and struggling to get off double teams. And so the Raiders do a lot of that. They had a fullback out there a lot. I forget his name. I think he's number 46 or something like that. They have a fullback they like to use. Obviously, they have Bowers line up as a traditional tight end. Jan Thomas has kind of replaced the Michael Mayer role for them over the last couple of weeks. So they like having multiple tight end sets out there. It's a Chip Kelly special. And I think this points to something that is going to be, the case going forward, are these strategic changes that allow the Chargers to steal some gaps. When they're in their nickel formation and Deion Henley is on the edge, kind of creating more of like a base look. And then they also are blitzing Derwin James or Tony Jefferson off of the backside. What that's allowing them to do is stealing some gaps, and it's allowing their defensive linemen and their edge rushers to have true like one-on-one opportunities. And then it makes things really easy for Denzel Perryman and for Elijah Molden and for Deion Henley to parse through what's going on in front of them. And then, like you mentioned, you see them playing freer, you see them playing faster. You see Denzel Perryman had like 3 or 4 times where he just came down and absolutely laid the wood. Elijah Molden, same kind of thing. I thought played really, really well. But I think this is like the schematics matching with the players who we are hoping to see more from. And it just is giving the Chargers more opportunities to, burst to the ball is their phrase. And I love that. And I think that this game showcases what this team can do. And like, obviously it would be great if we could just sit back, play our normal stuff and stop the run at a really, really high level like last year. But when you don't have Puna Ford and Deon's kind of struggling and Derwin hasn't had as strong of an impact and Molden's been in and out of the lineup, you don't have a Lohi Gilman anymore and stuff like that just kind of piles up. Well, let's make some changes. Let's be a little bit more funky. And that also allows, your players to have more confidence. So we'll talk about some of the coverage stuff and pass rush stuff, but their additional resources against the run, I thought made a big difference. And the Raiders don't have like a great run fit or a great, rushing operation overall. But I think this upcoming week against the Eagles, who don't necessarily have like a great operation, but they have great talent in the running game. I think we will see them continue to dedicate these kind of resources going forward because it worked. And I think this is not a one-off because I do think that Jesse Minter had a very specific plan post-bye and it looked great. It allowed everybody to play freer. And he said this, like, I'm always going to put my players in the positions that they feel comfortable with. And to me, the players looked extremely comfortable and fast and physical this week. And I think that was the combination of the schematics and just the overall players coming together.
Yeah, huge breath of fresh air. I think, mid-season or so, there's all the whispers of, the league has figured out Jesse Minter. And there's only so much maybe you can do on the fly. And, of course, waiting for Khalil Mack to come back and Molden and these guys. Now that everyone is generally healthy, you just feel like post-bye Minter went, all right, well, let's self-scout. What can we do? And it's what makes him great. The Chargers are second in dropback EPA right now. They're top 5 in a ton of stats right now just because this guy's pretty good. It just hasn't been perfect, and we're looking for that perfect. But it almost feels like nitpicking sometimes because we expect more because of last year. But just knowing that he can do this and go, all right, let's try this out, and without really having to change a ton, just do enough, like you said, to win gaps and steal gaps, like you said. And watching it, I immediately started thinking of the Eagles game. Like, okay, this actually I think could work. I'm very curious how much he's also just trusting the corners behind them as well as they get more data. Because this is another year of another first year of getting data with Dante Jackson and Benjamin St. Juste and technically even Cam Hart. Tarheeb still as your starter, but not coming back. Trying to figure out how this is all going to work with new safety. You traded Gilman, Moulton's back. Now he's hurt. Now he's back. Jefferson, etc. And I feel like with all this kind of data that he has now, it's like, okay, got it. Boom, here we go. And I really feel like it will succeed against the Eagles next week, which is crazy because, I know it's Saquon Barkley. I know this, it's all that. The names are there, but you watch the Eagles and it's just kind of like, I don't know what happened to them. And I don't watch them enough to really know, but it's not the same. And if they are in this, there's my dog. If they are in this kind of rut right now where they can't get out of it and the Chargers are going, we figured ourselves out. We've got this. Here's the best version of what we can do. I'm not saying they're going to beat the crap out of the Eagles, but I feel much better about it because of what they did post-bye.
Yeah, I think that's definitely spot on. And I think just, from a schematic standpoint, being able to kind of flex your muscles a little bit for Jesse Minter. And, we did see this a little bit at the tail end of last season where, Cam Hart really started and Tarheeb still really started to come on. They started to play a little bit more man coverage. They started to blitz a little bit more. So I think, Jesse Minter has this kind of philosophical, ideology of how he wants to play to protect his players and specifically his secondary, because that's how he's like, he builds this thing from back to front as opposed to front to back. And there's some people who build it the other way around. But now that he's kind of seeing these adjustments come through and trusting his corners a little bit more, trusting his linebackers a little bit more, I do think this, again, this is going to stick around. So, I just loved everything that he was doing this week, and it was a really good reminder for people, fans who might be questioning, like, oh, is this guy for real? Is he somebody who can actually really take take a head coaching job? Stuff like that is something that a lot of fans have been questioning. Like a few weeks ago when I tweeted out an article from Jamaree Salyer, who was like, I expect Jesse Minter to be on the radar, and everybody was like, well, not after this game. Well, now you see this kind of schematic stuff, and again, he's got to string these opportunities together. But I do think this is an expression of his trust, of how he looks at these players and giving them different fronts and things like that, giving them different coverage schemes is really a coach saying, okay, like, what we've been doing is not working. I'm going to trust you guys to go out and change it and make adjustments, and it worked. So, getting to the coverage aspect of things, 15% cover zero rate is not, it's not crazy. It's not the highest, it's not the Vikings, for example. But I thought that their combination of different pressures and simulated pressures and cover zero really threw the Raiders off a little bit. I thought that really affected Geno and his timing. It made him more uncomfortable. Obviously, they had some sacks and things like that, but you could tell, I think, that the Raiders were expecting a lot of the same kind of zone looks that they got in week 2. And instead, you come out and Dante Jackson and Cam Hart and Atari still are pressing and man coverage. And it looked really good, man. I love the change up there. It's just like a little subtle tweak of more man coverage. But I think Dante Jackson and Tariq still are probably more comfortable in zone coverage. But when you have Benjamin St-Juste and Cam Hart, and I do think that the other two can play man coverage, I just like to see the little sprinkle, of a change up here. And I thought it worked this week, especially with a Raiders group, like you mentioned, that doesn't have a ton of high-end wide receiver talent, especially after trading Jacoby Myers. So I'm very curious if that part is here to stay, because next week you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and then you have Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and then you have Nico Collins, and then you have CeeDee Lamb, etc. So that part I'm a little bit more iffy about it sticking, but I enjoyed watching it. I think it made Geno Smith really flustered, hold on to the football a little bit longer, and affected the overall production that the Raiders were able to get out there.
Yeah, it really feels like it's something they do against quarterbacks they have no respect for. No offense, they have some respect for, but you see Geno Smith, Cam, or I should say the Steelers, the Titans, the Raiders. You've got who at receiver and what at quarterback, and you have a tendency to not do this, and that. Yeah, here we go. We'll play you tighter, we'll play you closer, we'll press your guys, we'll redirect them, whatever. And so I think that I would like to see, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is really struggling right now, so I don't even know what to tell you in terms of how he is as a quarterback. But I would like to see them do kind of the same thing, like you said, against an Eagles, against the Cowboys. Heaven forbid they even try that one. So yeah, I thought the coverage stuff was awesome. I think it was so much better. I don't know if Perryman is doing it, a little bit of Dan Henley, but every time Geno not that Geno was going through 4 different reads and trying to get to his 4-3, he couldn't. But it felt like, okay, 1 does not work. Here's 2. And they're just perfectly covered. Everybody was just flowing and moving so much better. It's finally, and again, it's the Raiders. I get it. But just the movement of the players, whoever they're covering, still NFL players they're covering, whoever it is they were covering, they did a very good job of getting those spots. And it just made it impossible for Geno Smith and these guys to do anything, to the point where, I mean, the Chargers showed 7 on that Derwin James sack. They're like, okay, here's 7 guys. Pick what you're going to do. Decide how you're going to die today. Are you going to be right? Let's see. And they show they're going to send 7. They end up dropping Thule and Deshaun Hand back. And they end up in a numbers loss. It's 5 versus 6 at that point with the running back blocking. And Derwin James is off the edge by himself. Dan Henley ends up on the running back, and that's a loss for the running back too. Showing 7, then rushing 5 against 6, and still getting 1 guy free is just awesome. It's getting more fun, I think. And it's a lot more fun for me to watch.
Yeah, I think the blitzes definitely impacted the Raiders, and you would see every single time, like Geno would come, like the Chargers would show 7 up front, and Geno would come up and he would try and communicate with the offensive line and communicate with Geno, and then it felt like every time they were guessing wrong, and like it's hard to blame them to a certain extent, because they're to the right side, you see Thule and Owe and Derwin, and you're like, okay, we're going to slide that way. And instead, Thule and Deshaun Hand from that side drop down. And then the left side, you have Tariq Still and Dan Henley. So in my head, I'm like, okay, they're going to rush Derwin. Like, obviously, that's the side that's going to rush with your 3 best pass rushers on that side. And instead, the Raiders just guessed completely wrong. And so it was very, it was the most exotic game I think we've seen from Jesse Minter, because he's always done, let's show 6 and then we'll drop 2 kind of stuff. But when he added that extra guy in there, showing 7, rushing 5, it just really, the Raiders offensive line is not very good. They were playing with like a practice squad left guard, et cetera. But, this is, Jesse Minter kind of showing, I think, putting out on tape, like, hey, like we can do the stereotypical like Raven stuff that is in his DNA. And I think this particular week it just overwhelmed the Raiders. And I haven't watched like the last couple of Eagles games outside of here and there on Black Friday and things like that, but online and on the talk shows, man, like they're all talking about how much this Eagles group is really struggling, specifically against like against designer pressures and simulated pressures and blitzes. And it's probably not in Jesse Minter's nature to go into this game and dedicate those kind of resources to blitzing. But based on the last couple of weeks and how the Eagles have really struggled to dive through that, that should be something they can stick to. And the Chiefs the week after that, you don't have Trey Smith anymore. Josh Simmons, the left tackle, he's out, so that offensive line is not very good. The Texans offensive line is not very good. The Cowboys are obviously really, really good. The Broncos obviously really, really good. But the next few weeks, I think we should see them stick to the pressure stuff. So I think this is a long conversation about this, but I think the run fits are here to stay. The run blitzes are here to stay. The pressure looks are here to stay. For me, the one I'm most iffy about is the coverage stuff.
Yeah, I gotta remember what they did last year. I gotta remember the trends at which they did last year, because it was sort of dependent on Cam Hart sometimes too, being healthy or not healthy. So yeah. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Our next big narrative of the week is Mr. Jamaree Salyer. So you have on here stabilizing the left tackle spot. What did you make of how Jamaree played, in this game against mostly Tyree Wilson and Malcolm Kuntz, a little bit of Max Crosby here and there? What do you think of Jamaree's, first start of the season at left tackle?
As we've sort of said several times jokingly with several players this year, Bud Dupree, there's the floor. Anybody over that is better. With Deculus, with Penning's not even one game, 0.9% of 90% of a game. It was like, can you give us anything? And the decision for Jamaree to go in terms of pass protection and protecting Justin Herbert, probably their best option. The concerns were, how does it look in the run game? And then if Mekhi Becton, who has voiced his opinion, and he did finish the game, but if Mekhi Becton does not finish another game, who's the right guard? And they've sort of cleared that up, talked about Bobby Hart on the right side, Penning on the left side, yada, yada, yada. So they've got their plan there. Fine. It's not Foster Sarrell, at least, and that's what Steven wanted no matter what.
Yeah.
I was just very impressed with Jamaree, and I think the word stabilize is the word I want to use. I don't want to sit here and say, wow, that was the greatest game I've ever seen. This guy is an all-pro. Who even needs Rashawn Slater back next year, or Joe Alt, whatever, kick rocks. I don't want to say that, but I think he stabilized the spot, and everything just looked very patient and in control. It looked a bit more veteran than I'm used to for Jamaree Salyer. Some of the patience he was working with, that was very solid in the run game, which he dropped weight, and I was curious how that would help him. At guard, it really didn't seem to help him all that much. He just get flat knocked on his ass in a couple of games. Did not look great. That didn't look like that Jamaree we're used to. Pass protection, in the run game on the outside. Look, when you're lined up next to Zion Johnson, you can tell there is a difference. There's a difference in how these guys move. Same with looking at Bozeman in a negative way. Like, Zion moves differently than those guys, but Jamaree got it done. If he was on the front side of a play and trying to pin somebody, it looked good. If he was going to the outside on the Kamani Vidal run, he did his job. Is he Joe Alt? No. Is he Rashawn Slater? No. Is he Zion? No. But he did his job enough. So the combination of the two things, yes, he got some help. He did lose a rep that he gave up a sack on. TBD on how ESPN charts that versus PFF, yada yada yada. But for the most part, he just played well, and I think we've been desperate for anything that was even above average. And I would say that in this game, he looked pretty good. So I think stabilizes right now is the word I'd like to use, and it's just nice to see that they have a reliable, generally healthy guy on offense that they can lean on. And I think this, in the combination with just using the tight ends more, using the fullbacks more, actually getting them on the field like your identity says you are, it just really worked overall. I think Jamaree did his part, and I thought he did a very, very good job on Sunday.
Yeah, there were a couple of plays in particular that really kind of, I think, showed the difference. The first one was the Quentin Johnson touchdown, where you see Herbert kind of duck a little bit and think like, oh, I'm going to have to scramble here. And then he's like, wait, I'm good. And then he kind of pops back up and throws a touchdown to Quentin Johnston. And then his second touchdown of the game, where he kind of rolled out and hit Ladd. I love, this is my favorite rep of Jamaree Salyer of the day. It was actually against Max Crosby. And you see him on the rep where he sets and Max Crosby goes to dip. And a lot of times, like a very anxious tackle, like a Penning, like a Deculus, will see that dip and go, oh, I got to get hands on him immediately. And you see Salyer kind of like raise his hands up. And then once Crosby starts to kind of turn the corner a little bit, you see him put his hands back on him, and he just kind of runs him by Herbert, and Herbert, escapes out right through that way, throws a touchdown to Ladd McConkey. So just things like that, I think, makes the Jamaree Salyer trade-off worth it. I personally still am very much concerned about what happens when Mekhi Becton goes down. Jim Harbaugh says that that's Bobby Hart. I think that might be better than Foster Sorrell. I haven't seen Bobby Hart play guard yet. Tackle as a swing tackle, I think he's relatively stable there. But Jamaree, I think, does the job. And I think like my personal preference was a lot of, let's keep the run game, and then with Penning or Deculus, and then let's dedicate more resources to pass protection at left tackle. The Chargers have chosen the opposite, and Jamaree Salyer, has rewarded them tremendously at left tackle. This was their lowest pressure percentage allowed on the season since like week 6 against the Commanders. So it was only 30%. And granted, the Raiders don't have like the best defensive line ever, but you still have Crosby, and they still do a good amount of stunts and things like that. And Jamaree and Zion picking up stunts, it looked a lot better than previous situations. I actually thought Bozeman picked up a few stunts that looked pretty good. So I think overall, it felt like a really calming presence over there at left tackle.
Yeah,
that I probably overlooked, heading into this game. And I don't think that, like you mentioned, I don't think Jamaree was like amazing at left tackle, but it was solid enough for me to be okay with this. And, we'll figure out right guard whenever we have to figure out right guard.
Yeah, and hopefully Becton does figure it out. I didn't think Becton played all that well. I thought
Becton was the worst of the 5 on Sunday.
That I could probably agree with there.
Yeah.
Pipkins
I mentioned this in Discord,
yeah,
but I went to college with Leki Fotu. I had some classes with him, hung out with him. Great dude. He should not be beating Mekhi Becton to his spot as often as he did in the run game. And he was not the only one. The Mekhi Becton kind of struggling in pass protection. I think, it's not like his forte. The run blocking from the guy who I watched on tape on Philadelphia to now, it looks like a completely different player. He is getting beat to his spot 4 or 5 times a game. You tweeted out a couple weeks ago after the interception, they run Kamani Vidal off the edge, and Mekhi Becton just gets like the play is over before it starts. Same thing happens this time where Jefferson gets the interception. They run Vidal on second down. Mekhi Becton gets completely, beat to his spot. There's nowhere for Kamani Vidal to go. At the goal line, there was another instance. The run blocking for Mekhi Becton is a mess right now. And the Raiders defensive tackles are like not that good. So it's a problem. It's a problem for Mekhi Becton in the run game right now, how often he is getting beat to his spot. And when you don't have, Amari Hampton can beat people to the edges. He's a freak athletically. Sure. When you're dealing with kind of a more average running back athletically like Kamani Vidal, there's just nowhere for him to go. So it's an issue when Mekhi Becton is the worst of the 5, when Bradley Bozeman is on the roster and starting next to him.
Yeah, if you told me Becton was the worst of the 5, I'd go, great. Which center did they draft? And how well is Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater playing? And all that sort of stuff. Unfortunate to see for sure. Yeah, even on the I think it was the Vidal run. He was just a little bit late to get. Yeah, there was the Vidal run for 50-something whatever yards. Trey Harris did his job. Becton almost didn't, but Vidal was pretty darn good, and he was great this game. I love watching the All-22 on Vidal. We've already talked about him, but God, it was a great game. Becton not so much. I thought Pipkins was fine. It's a rough matchup for him, so it is what it is. But anyway, as far as Jamaree goes, happy with him here. I've overreacted to one of his games before. I think we've all overreacted to some of his games before. And then the rug gets pulled from underneath him, and it's like, oh, here we go. But for a game and what they did in the run game, pass protection, I thought it was really solid.
I think there are very specific types that both Salyer and Pipkins struggle with, and if you have that speed where you can burst off the football, and the thing with Jamaree is that when he gets to his spot, when he gets to his landing point, he's really difficult to get past for these edge rushers who don't have like that high level power. And obviously Tyree Wilson and Malcolm Kuntz do not have that kind of power. There were only a few reps against Max Crosby, but I would have liked to see Crosby try and do like a speed to power rush against Jamaree Salyer just to see like what it would look like. So I am concerned, like when they get to Houston and when they get to Denver, those guys who can beat Jamaree to his spots a little bit more, I am concerned what that looks like. Even this week against like a Nolan Smith or a Jalen Phillips, what does that look like? So, Jamaree played really well. I think, there's just a floor raising aspect to having Jamaree out there, having Trey Pipkins healthy. Obviously, Trey, like you mentioned, I thought he was fine, but that's really all we're hoping for right now is like, can you just be fine? Can you keep the pressure percentage around 30 to 35% instead of 50%? That's a huge difference, especially with Justin, and his hand injury. So I like the way that he played. It just felt patient. He was getting to his spot. Yeah. It looked really good. In that regard, stunt pickup was really nice. The run blocking was a bit up and down, I would say. So it's kind of the sacrifice of having Jamaree out there versus Penning, who, in the 4 snaps that Penning played, I actually did think like as a run blocker, there's some nice things to work with there.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that was included this week. They didn't neglect Penning having any kind of role. They did trade for him, so let's figure out something for him. I got to look at what the number was exactly from Chris Rim, because I know he tweeted out that Jamaree was like number 1 or has 100% pass block win rate from ESPN. The run blocking was, I think, 30th or 40th in that game. Oh my God, why can I not find it? I've been looking at it all day. Let's pretend it was 30th. The point is there was a noticeable drop off in that number. And that's kind of what the concern was. But even then, I thought he was pretty solid.
Yeah, I think 100% win rate, I would definitely, I do not agree with that. There were a couple times where Kuntz beat him on the inside, but it's really nitpicking. I think at the end of the day, we both wanted the solution to be what kept Herbert upright the most, and Jamaree is obviously that. So, big shout out to Jamaree. I have been skeptical of his left tackle play, and we'll see what it looks like against better edge rushers. But for now, it stabilizes the left tackle spot, and I think that's all we could have asked for heading into this final 5-game stretch.
Yeah, and on the numbers don't say this. I was looking at Max Crosby's numbers, 5 pressures, 2 sacks, 6 stops. Still a freak. I hate playing that guy. But I thought they did enough things where there's like Matlock, or they would like, or Crosby would think
they had a good plan for him.
Yeah, they did. They had a really good plan for him. He a couple of times he's like, oh, I'm going to get the backside run here. Here we go. And then suddenly a fullback is hitting him in the face because they're running it actually at him, but they're pulling somebody this way. So they did I think they had a really good plan for him. He also had 5 pressures, 2 sacks, and 6 stops. But I thought in general, they actually had a very good plan for him.
Yeah, I think this was probably the best that they've defended him as a looper. Like, I feel like in other previous games, especially against, like the Joe Lombardi offense, kind of always struggled with it. So they would have like 3 guys to one side, and he would loop around, essentially like replacing the center. And there were a lot of previous games where Max Crosby would just essentially get like a free shot on Herbert in that regard. Yeah. And this is where I actually thought Bozeman was really on it this time. Usually when Bozeman is kind of free, he's really kind of struggling. He's very indecisive. This game, it was like Max Crosby's on that side. I'm going to protect that side. And I thought they did a really good job. Hanan pointing out, I thought Kamani Vidal, who is excellent in pass protection, was fantastic this week. And there were a couple reps where Pipkins got like a little, he got off to a little bit of a late start, and Crosby's about to turn the corner. And here's Vidal, boom, hits him right in the chest. And then Max Crosby is stunned, and there's not a lot there. So there were, Crosby beat Pipkins off the snap, and Pipkins like instantly was like, hey, like, where's the flag? Where's the flag? Outside of that one rep, I do think Pipkins played pretty well in that regard. But Kamani Vidal is a weapon in pass protection, man. Like, he loves it. I think you can really see him shine in that regard. And it's really good. I thought Tucker Fisk had some good moments in there. You and I looked like after the game, and it was like 0 pass blocking reps for Tucker Fisk, but there were like 7 or 8 in that I saw, and then he was chipping a lot. So the pass protection plan was definitely something we wanted to see change heading out of the bye week, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come, because this week you get Jalen Carter and Jalen Phillips and Nolan Smith, and so they're going to need some more high quality pass protection plans and Salyer to play this way if they're going to keep Justin Herbert upright the rest of the way.
Yeah. To the point of Vidal, they had a wheel route for him that I kind of
I was so mad.
I get it, because Herbert could have made that throw, but I also understand because the safety kind of commits to Vidal's side, and that's why he goes to Keenan. It's a really good decision. But I saw that, I'm like, just throw it. Throw it, man. Tough throw. And I get it. And it worked. Picked up the first down, 3rd and Keenan, all great. Big gain. But I was like, oh, there it is. So good to know they're doing that.
Yeah, he's had some really good routes, and like the tempo of that wheel route, like he got Kuntz, like Kuntz was not ready for that.
No.
And you saw Kamani afterwards, he was like, oh man, like Kamani knew it that he was wide open. So
yeah,
it was a great Kamani Vidal game, man. Like watching him on tape, and there was, I think he only had 2 runs of 10+ yards, but every other like 5-yard run, it was like block for 1, here's 5. Like it was just so impressive, the yards after contact. The 50-yard touchdown run was great. There was I think it was like an 8-yard gain, later in the 3rd quarter, where they're trying to run outside zone to the left, and he kind of like cuts outside and then cuts back inside and makes somebody miss, runs the safety over, gets 8 yards, 7-8 yards, gets a first down, and he got up and was like talking shit to them. And we haven't really seen that out of Kamani Vidal. So it was a great Kamani Vidal game. I'm very excited to see what it looks like once Amari and Hampton comes back, and the kind of 1-2 punch that they get once Hampton is healthy. So big shout out. We gave Vidal a lot of flowers after the game, but I actually think like on tape, it was a better watch for him.
So good. So freaking good. There's a 3rd and 1 where I think it was Kuntz beats Becton. I want to say, I could be wrong. I apologize. Or he beats somebody, and Kamani just dead stops, cuts way to the left, and then bounces to the outside, and I think runs to another player for only 3 yards. But I don't know, just the stuff Vidal was doing in this game. Hampton is the RB1. I'm never going to say that's not the case, but I don't know how you aren't feeding Vidal 10 carries, at least 12 carries. I mean, go for it, especially with Herbert's hand situation. I don't see how you stop feeding this guy.
Yeah. The 3rd and 8 where Trey Lance was in, and they called a shotgun run or a shotgun outside zone, and then Kamani's just like, "Fuck you!" Like, I'm getting this first down. It was so good, man. It was a great Kamani Vidal game. To your point, though, I think this is the operation for success. Is we're gonna give Vidal 15-18 carries, and we're gonna give Hampton 15-18 carries, and we're just gonna ride this run game. And it's not like this is a great run blocking unit, but with those two, just being able to pop a 50-yard run at any moment and get these yards after contact, I think this absolutely has to be the plan going forward. So I love what we're seeing from Kamani Vidal, and like you mentioned, we kind of, Najee gets hurt, and we're like, okay, Hampton's your very clear RB1. Like, what are we doing next year? Vidal is very clearly, this might be a 1A and 1B situation if Vidal continues to play like this for me.
Yeah, I'm terrible comparison I'm going to throw out here, but this is like what you want from Gibbs, Montgomery, that sort of thing. Like just that specific 1-2. It's like nobody here is Jameer Gibbs. I'm not quite saying that. But you really the roles, and you believe in your second running back here. You are fine. Swift Monungai, if that makes you feel any better. Apparently Ben Johnson, if you're a Ben Johnson running back, but hey, I'll take that. The fact, I don't remember the last time they had an RB1B who could step in and give you, well, it depends on the week, but 100 something yards a game. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. I think it's just about like Greg Roman sticking with it, but yeah, man, I love him. I think NSN bringing up an interesting point here. Do you think Kamani Vidal's blocking is better than Hampton's right now?
I would trust him more. I just haven't seen Hampton play enough to know, and haven't seen him play in a while to even know. So I think I would trust Vidal more at this point, but I don't know. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute. I think Omarion was having some great blocks at certain times in the past as well. They use Kamani as a blocker more, I would say. Like when Hampton was doing his thing, like they had him out in routes a lot more often. So I am curious, but Vidal, I think he's got a year under his belt as well. I think that's a really important thing because we liked Vidal's pass protection in college. It was just kind of like the schematics of things really overwhelmed him last year. So I think he's taking that to heart a little bit, and I think it's a good problem to have that you are asking this question.
Oh yeah, that's a great problem.
All right, our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back after this with some more Chargers film review takeaways. Okay, we're gonna get to some unsung heroes. We talked a little bit offensive line, we talked a little bit secondary, but your first unsung hero is the Unks, and we saw that great mic'd up clip of Keenan Allen saying we're both Unks out here. So I assume you're talking about Keenan Allen and Tony Jefferson.
Yeah, yes, Keenan Allen, Tony Jefferson, Bud Dupree for a few plays, and I will throw out the player you mentioned as well, Bradley Bozeman. Not that I don't think we consider Bradley Bozeman an Unk, but we're at a certain age bracket. How about that? And I thought everybody contributed in a very positive way. But yes, Keenan was great in his limited role, if you will. Tony Jefferson, it's just great seeing him out there. I've gone from like, why would this guy who hasn't played and was a scout, why would he even make the roster or play really at all, to like, this is a pretty cool part of the defense. And I think in terms of just physicality and vibes and IQ and communication, the defense is just better with him out there. So those two, but Dupree had a couple of good plays. His celebrations continue to crack me up. Bradley Bozeman looked good, guys. It was the most spry I've seen him on runs that in a while. Because usually this is a guy very sluggish, very late to get there. And again, it's not a great Raiders front, but their run defense is their best group overall. And I thought this was the most athletic I've seen Bradley Bozeman look. Like you said, the IQ stuff, the pickups were there as well. So I think the above 32 crowd, which will feature Steven and I in a couple of years, did very well.
That's going to feature me in like a month.
Oh, well, speak for yourself. Steven's an Unk in a year. We've decided that 32
is the cutoff.
Yeah, 32. Okay.
Yeah. I would also throw Khalil Mack into that conversation. Obviously,
yes, thank you. Oh my gosh,
he's probably the best player of that group right now. But there were 3 or 4 rushes that Khalil Mack put the left tackle. Again, it's Stone Forsythe. It's the backup left tackle, but he puts Stone Forsythe right in Gino's lap a few times, and I think it's.
Oh yeah.
I was having a conversation with somebody how they think Khalil could do a better job of maybe shedding the tackles a little bit. I just think it's funny how he just makes up his mind like, yeah, fuck you. I'm just going to put you in your quarterback slap.
Yeah.
And it just works. Like, I think he played awesome. There were a couple of run stops from him or ways where he kind of set somebody else for a run stop.
Yeah.
And Khalil, I thought was awesome in this game as well. Again, we expect that out of him more so maybe than the other guys, but
right.
This Unk crowd, I think was really, really good.
Yeah, Khalil Mack was freaking awesome. I don't know. Again, I do not know what it is about the Raiders. I guess I know what it is because they traded him, but
he hates them.
He hates them. My mom and I have picked them more for Khalil Mack and his prize picks for 2 years now, 3 years now, I think, or 2 years we've been doing this. He just hates them, and he's excited to hate them and play very well against them. And he looked awesome. Everybody post by, and I'm sure just having a week off was nice for them. It'd been a minute. Everyone just looked very refreshed, very happy to be out there. And all the Unks look good, man. Yeah,
Denzel Perryman we talked about definitely is.
Perryman, yep.
He's older than 32.
I
mean, he was drafted in San Diego. So, like, he's got to be over 32.
He's 33 on Friday.
Oh, nice. Happy early birthday, Denzel Perryman.
Happy early birthday.
He had a couple really, we mentioned earlier, but he had some really fun moments as well. So, the Chargers have been getting a lot of production from their young players, but this week it definitely was a lot of the older guys stepping up, which was fun to see.
Yeah, it was.
My unsung hero or heroes of the week are going to be the Chargers corners. Dante Jackson, I thought obviously he had the insane pass breakup that led to the Tony Jefferson, interception, which people gave Dante Jackson his flowers, but there were a couple tackles in run support where Ashton Jinty is like fully open field, cutting back to the backside, and Dante Jackson had him like dead to rights. And we saw it wasn't like an amazing Ashton Jinty game, but he is very difficult to tackle. And Dante Jackson brings him to the ground both times. I thought Tariq still had some cool moments as well in coverage. Cam Hart had some, it was kind of an up and down game for him in terms of covering Brock Bowers. But when he wasn't covering Brock Bowers, I thought he played pretty well. We didn't see a ton of Benjamin St. Juste, but, looking at the corner group as a whole, we've given them praise a lot this season. But when you filter it, coverage snaps on PFF to 20% of the coverage snaps, all 4 of the Chargers corners are in the top 30 in forced incompletion percentage. They're all above 15%. And all of them have had moments. All of them play the run well. All of them are able to, obviously cover their guys, not in Brock Bowers. And I just think like Dante Jackson and Tariq still in this game in particular were really, really good in run support. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was you have to be able to tackle in this defense and play corner. Yeah. So I thought that really stood out aside from just like some really smart coverage plays as well.
Yeah, Dante Jackson, I didn't know what to expect other than my new blind faith of, in injury we trust was that when the mantra heading into this was like, I don't know, Steelers hate this guy. His numbers weren't great by any means. He's like below average stuff. And then he gets over here and every number is incredible. I mean, he almost has as many tackles as he does like receptions allowed, which means like he has 16 tackles and 17 receptions allowed, still under 200 yards on the year. I don't know how he pulled off that pass breakup to tip pass. Like, I don't know how NFL players, special one of a million kind of players. I just don't understand how you do this, knock the ball down. Then in that same thought, know to go, okay, comes another guy from over here. That's bad. Like, he's been so good. And people thought I was kind of overreacting to it's the best 26 since the previous 26 that they signed, but it kind of feels like that. And with Jesse Minter, they just find another guy, go, and they were whatever they were. They could have been whatever they freaking were before they went with the Chargers. But if they're a corner, they're good now. And as you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the forcing completion rate for all of them is ridiculous. Dante Jackson won't make the Pro Bowl. He's not a name anybody knows unless you're a Chargers fan or a Steelers fan or a Michigan fan or whatever. Do you go to Michigan? No, LSU. Excuse me.
LSU. Yeah.
But man, like he's just impressed me like crazy. The corners for sure. Cam Hart did not have a great game, and that's beyond the Brock Bowers stuff. I was kind of like I said that, hey, go for it. If you want to throw it against Cam Hart and Brock Bowers, by all means. In the red zone, that's definitely a mismatch for him. But what are you supposed to do defending a play that's over here while you're falling this way? Like, what are we supposed to do? That's an impossible catch that Brock Bowers had. But the corners will always be an underrated group. It has been probably the best position group of anybody all year. And no one really even talk about half these guys unless you're a Chargers fan.
Yeah, I think when they signed Dante Jackson, it was like kind of surprised at the price tag.
Yeah,
kind of surprised that they weren't getting like a true man coverage corner.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been really good. So again, coverage grades are very hit or miss depending on how you view PFF grades in general. But he's the 5th highest coverage grade among all starting cornerbacks on the season. His forced incompletion percentage is 18%, which is the 10th highest, and he has 3 interceptions. So he's making plays on the football. He's covering really well. If you don't like PFF grades, there are a bunch of like EPA per target charts out there. He's always in the top right. So he's playing really well. And there's like, it's funny. We've gone like full swing now where some people are like, oh, is he better than Tarheeb still? And is he better than Cam Hart? Again, good problem to have that you're even asking that question.
Yeah.
But it just shows, this when Jesse Minter identifies a player that he likes and trusts, like this is what you get. So Dante Jackson is probably like the unsung hero of the season, I would say.
Yep.
You know, there are probably some other ones, but just so consistently in the right position week in and week out, makes plays on the football, tackles well. Probably the biggest pleasant surprise for me of the season that this team has had so far.
Yeah, I'm going to have ridiculous expectations for every DB corner in particular that walks into, because they've all been awesome. Whether it's one game, one play, one season, whatever, they've all been great.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, let's get to some real or fake things here. You wanted to highlight Thule as what is real. What are your thoughts here on the way Thule played this week?
Just absolute force of nature. He's not the bendy, show off tons of pass rush moves right now kind of guy against a tackle and winning that way. Khalil's the better edge rusher. I think Owe as a pass rusher should demonstrate more. I actually thought Owe played better than the numbers suggest. I think they gave him one pressure. There's a lot of wins for him that were on early throws, so you couldn't see them become pressures. But I thought the plays that he did were a lot better than the numbers. But Thule, I mean, he just was nasty in this game. It's games like this. You forget that the dude's 23. Like, his brain isn't done developing. His body isn't either. But his brain is still developing, guys. This is still like, to me, at I don't know. Like I said, we're getting to unk age, I suppose. He's like a kid to me. A 23-year-old. What were you doing at 23? Were you fully mature mentally, physically? No. And this guy is still climbing statistically, and then of course like developing his own self. The rip on the guard for the sack was awesome. Once again, the guy just treats tight ends like trash. He's offended by the fact that you would assign a tight end or fullback to go up against him, and the pop from him, it just you can see the displacement in the pop. It's unbelievable. I mean, kicking the crap out of these guys, the batted pass. Then he's on, and then I'm watching special teams and I'm going, wow, it's a really good play. Who was that? Oh, it's Thule. The guy with this many pressures and sacks and stops and batted passes. Oh, by the way, he throws another player into the returner and gets a tackle on special teams. It's like, what? I know this guy isn't, Myles Garrett or even Max Crosby, but I just love watching this dude play. And against the Jags, there's a big disappearing act by the whole team. He kind of got hurt early on in that game. It looked like he was hurt. I don't know if that affected him. They had a bye, so I don't know what would happen the next week, but he looked like he came out of the bye refreshed, ready to go. He looked awesome. And just real quick, the last thing I'll throw in there is that his average depth of tackle is negative, and the only person that has a higher one than him right now is Myles Garrett. So he in the run game in particular, I should say, he's making plays, not just chasing guys down. He's making them in the backfield. Only 3 guys this entire season who have a negative average depth of tackle, and he's one of them.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. The 4th down stop that he had against Genty was so good. And I think like my favorite, he can set an edge for sure, but his timing and beating tight ends specifically to their spots is just really, really like next level stuff. And we haven't seen it as much this season. But I just think like he's got such good feel for how to be disruptive in the run game. And that's a lot more difficult than it sounds. Like, his timing is just like always on point. And then makes a great tackle on 4th down to get Genty to the ground there. So we talked about Thule after the game, but I do think this was probably one of his better run defense games of the season. And then obviously you pair it with the 3 different, sack opportunities on Geno Smith. So we're at the point now where he's about, top 10, top 20 in like pretty much every metric that you want to look at on the season. He is playing more special team snaps than I would like, as we have discussed several times.
Sure.
The Chargers did actually put Bud Dupree on special teams this week, by the way. He was on the kickoff team this week. So they subbed out Justin Eboigbe for Bud Dupree, and I think that helped a little bit. But Thule, I think just there's this narrative of amongst the fans where it's like, yeah, he disappears in these big games. And I'm like, well, if you ignore pressure numbers, sure. But he had, 4 pressures in week 1 against the Chiefs. He had 6 pressures against the Colts. He had 7 pressures against the Commanders. Like he's had big games against other teams, and he always defends the run as hard as he possibly can. So I don't like I don't think like you that he's like a star edge rusher, but I do think in terms of being like a high end number two, this is absolutely somebody that you can count on. And like George Karlaftis makes like $20 million a year, and
Yeah.
Thule's way more productive than George Karlaftis is.
Probably right now. I think he had like an 80 pressure season, but Thule's en route to be that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what you're getting out of him, Karlaftis taken much sooner than Thule. Like that's freaking awesome. Thank you, Telesco. You did it.
Telesco's last draft class is
awesome, man.
Well, Dan's a little bit more up and down now, but
yeah,
looks good.
I'll take it.
My last one here, not to be like a caricature of ourselves, but we have to talk about Zion Johnson. I think like very clearly their best offensive lineman right now. I think he only allowed one pressure this week. And again, like the stunt pickup just is so much better with him and Jamaree. Like you can tell they've been together for years playing, with left tackle stuff. And then, Zion was right guard and Jamaree was right guard. Like there was a lot of good stuff happening between those two. And I think even, his stunt pickup opportunities with Bozeman has improved a little bit as well. But to me, like we've talked about this, he is their weapon as a run blocker. Like he is absolutely somebody that they rely on to consistently scheme up explosive runs. And a lot of times what happens on these, these toss plays or these counter plays where they're going out and like the tackle pulls out, well, Zion has to set the edge right there on the three technique, and his ability to consistently reach in that regard and just seal off the front side. And then Trey Harris or one of the receivers, will come in and seal the other player. And that allows the tackle to have the space to go out there. I think this has been consistently out there on tape. He's just fantastic in that regard. On the season, he only has one game where he's allowed more than 3 pressures. So this has been a consistent theme for him. He had 1 pressure this week, 2 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 2 against the Steelers. On the season, he's at 97.8 pass blocking efficiency rating. His highest of his career or best of his career was his up until this point was his rookie season at 97.1. Last year he was at 96.7. So he's really bumped up in that regard. If you filter pass blocking snaps to starting offensive guards, he's 11th, that 97.8 in pass blocking efficiency rating. So I don't know, man. Like you and I were kind of messaging back and forth in our group text with everybody about like how much would we pay Zion Johnson. I don't know if we can let Zion Johnson leave. I think this is a guy who just consistently shows up. As Sanan points out, he's a Ted kind of guy. His pass protection looks way better. There's more awareness out there. He's a weapon in the run game. Zion's playing really well, man. Again, like Raiders preface here that they do not have a great group, but he was really good on Sunday, and he's been really good in some of these other games. And so I don't know, man. Like we're the Zion podcast, but like he's been good this season, full stop. And this past Sunday, he was really, really good.
Yeah, got to give him a lot of credit for this season, for really the last 2 seasons, because it is something that started last year. We'd hoped for more last year, and we thought we were going to get more. This is a guy who's, I feel like he's never missed a practice practically. There everyday kind of guy, as Thomas Martinez points out. This is the tip of the spear kind of thing. If you're asking for like a tip of the spear kind of player, that's Zion Johnson in the run game. He is firmly, with the other tackles out, obviously, their guy in the run game. But what I thought was so great about him in this game too is he did a really good job making sure Jamaree Salyer was okay. There were not that the Raiders were sending a ton of stuff, but there were a lot of times where it was okay. If the inside is good, I am there for Jamaree, and it's several times throughout this game where it's like Jamaree, I'm looking at Jamaree, and just the presence of being there or physically being there to help out against somebody. That was what really stood out to me. It was the stunt pickup was great. I actually thought in game, I thought his stunt pickup was like, there was one where it was kind of late. I'm like, oh no, did he miss it? That sucks. Then you watch it on the film where you can actually see, the path to everything. It was great. Allowed Herbert to move, and I forget the results of the play. But it was better than I thought. So Zion played well. He has not really had a bad game outside of the DeForest Buckner game. Because it's DeForest Buckner and the Colts interior.
That's the more than 2 pressure game.
Yeah, exactly. At least 2 sacks in that game, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
TBD. I don't recall if they were actually ones that were assigned to him or if it was a. Anyway, I thought he played well. I know we're the Zion podcast, but we are until we're not, and he's still on the team, so we're going to keep talking about him.
Yeah.
And if he costs, I mean, we asked, and there were some numbers thrown around that were actually more favorable than I would have guessed. If he hits the open market, that's probably a different story. And who after this year, I don't know what to tell you about interior offensive linemen. The good news is the draft class seems better, and the free agency pool for all interior guys seems better. So it's not like this desperate attempt to get the 3 guys before the draft. But if they have to pay him $12 million because that's what he's worth, and then another $3 million to not find out what the other alternative is that Devlin's going to work with, fine by me. Whatever it ends up being. So at this point, barring some awful end of the season thing, or him complaining about the coaches not letting him finish a game or something, I think he's back next year, and I think he's earned the right to be here.
Yeah, he took an absolute cheap shot from Max Crosby, by the way. And like some Raiders fans I posted that short, and some Raiders fans found it. Were like, he was in the way. I'm like, no, he's like, Kamani Vidal was still up and running. Like Max Crosby could have made a tackle attempt and just like went ballistic at Zion Johnson. So
yeah,
and he was like legitimately shaken up, but then was right back up there the next play. So Jim Harbaugh loves him. Like he has talked about Zion Johnson every single week. He was on the Colin Cowherd podcast, and Colin asked him like, hey, like, how do you continue to have a good run game when you don't have your star tackles? And he was like, Zion Johnson is awesome. Like he didn't say it, that those were not his exact words, but it was it was his answer. It was like right away. He was like Zion. So it's a real thing, and it's a lesson in maybe patience and trying to figure out like, what does this regime really think of? So we were potentially out on Zion heading into the offseason. Like we were not super sure what this was going to look like. We lobbied for competition all spring long this past year, and now we're back. So Zion Johnson is reeling us back in, and it looks good. So I feel like if we were playing poorly, we would talk about it that way, but he's playing really well. And, he is the featured run blocker. He's pass protecting really well. He's picking up stunts. He's doing everything that we could have hoped for. And he's been objectively good this season, which is a big step up for him.
Yeah. And playing next to, Joe Alt was there, then not there, but like 2 of the worst tackles in the NFL. And the guy at center is the worst center in the NFL by several metrics. It's like, I'm surrounded by idiots. And then he's playing like okay on his own, pretty well on his own. Not an elite season. There's no Zach Martin here, but hey, give him another year and keep going.
Yeah, and he trains with Duke and all those guys every single summer, so it's possible he could continue to improve. But yeah, like don't overreact. We're not saying that this is the best guard in the NFL. We're not saying like go vote for him for the Pro Bowl, but he's been good, and I think that's a big step up from what anybody could have possibly hoped for heading into the season.
To the point of the Pro Bowl, are you surprised there's only 2 guys in the top 10 for the Chargers, 2 Chargers players?
I'm stunned that Derwin James is not in the top 10. I think that given just like how fans have felt about him, how many, non-Chargers fans vote for him, usually it seems like that was the biggest stunner for me. Thule being in the top 10, I was surprised about.
That surprised me.
Herbert not being in the top 10, I was surprised, but Khalil not being in the top 10, I was like, okay, he's missed some games.
Yeah.
Deion has not really been that guy. Who are you putting in at corner? There's no offensive lineman. So, I think Derwin, we can talk about him, on the season as a whole. I think he plays the run really, really well. And I think as a slot corner, like he's still a really good coverage defender. His coverage stats are really, really good. But I understand like there are some fans that wish he were kind of making more splash plays, and hopefully the increased blitz percentages kind of lend itself towards that. But I think Derwin is worthy of going to the Pro Bowl. He's still a Pro Bowl level player. I just don't think he's like first team All Pro this season, but I still think he should go to the Pro Bowl. Yeah,
there are not 10. Granted, it's the Pro Bowl, it's voting, but there are not 10 players at safety who are better.
No. But Dicker's first kicker, and we got to get our guy to the Pro Bowl, man. Like he deserves it.
He's trying so hard.
Far overdue. So keep that same energy over the next few weeks, you guys.
Yes. No one's putting young Hoi-Koo in the Pro Bowl after he kicked the earth. Which is
I don't know how the heck that happens as a kicker, but I saw these like golf things that were like me after my best drive, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally relatable.
Golf, I get. I've never seen that. I've never seen someone.
No.
And I'm shocked he didn't break his foot or something. I mean, that's got to
Yeah.
be. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Tyler. I didn't have any fake thoughts. Did you have a fake thought that you wanted to bring up?
I have no fake thoughts today.
No fake thoughts. That's good. Any other final thoughts on the tape watch then?
Yes. It's not even just tape watch. Every big run features Trey Harris. For the love of God, can we reward this guy with some more touches? Which I think that they were trying to get to.
Yeah.
There's a sort of deep shot on the outside. It was kind of just a more of a throwaway. But they checked into what was going to be some sort of screen to him. I thought he had plenty of green grass in front of him. They just had the neutral zone infraction, but that's kind of new for them to be able to check into that. And that's a Trey Harris play, which please get him the football. He's very physical. The pop pass was great. Just like, please get this guy the football more. I know if I'm not a Zion Johnson guy, I'm the Trey Harris guy. Please, for the love of God, get this guy more touches because he doesn't ever do anything bad with it up until that deep throw, just out of bounds incompletion. His only other incompletion his way for like 8 weeks was a play that he caught. It's just Herbert threw it, a ridiculous play to the sideline against the Dolphins, and he was just off by half a foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that wasn't a Trey Harris problem. He caught the thing. He just was led too far out. That was the only other incompletion. Not that he's getting fade, contested catches or whatnot, but get him the football. Get him the football, please.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do like the kind of gadgety stuff that they were showing him. I think he's really good in that role. Mm-hmm. And boy, can he run a slant. Like, we know he can run a slant now. So he's really good at that. Mm-hmm. He's such a good blocker, dude. Like he is probably one of my favorite blocking receivers on the Chargers that I've watched. And that's the thing about Sanjay Lal. All of the receivers block. Lai McConkey blocked an edge rusher on that toss play. Quentin had a couple good blocks. Keenan had a couple good blocks. So this group as a whole blocks really well. But Trey Harris, man, like it's kind of like Cooper Kupp-ish in that regard. Like he's capable of blocking edge rushers, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, more touches for Trey Harris would be great. You talked about that coming out of the bye week, and I think we might see that going forward. But also it's like they have 4 really good receivers and a tight end and the 2 running backs now. So it's a lot of mouths to feed right now. And the pass offense is just not great overall.
It's not. And then with the run game being the way it is, when you fit that in, but just, there's stuff out of the motion you can use with Trey Harris, anything, please, for the love of God, get this guy more touches.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. We have 7 super chats right now. Let's get to some of these and then we'll head out of here for tonight. Coco 8 Food says your choice for a realistic replacement for G-Road next season, both internal and external. Sanjay for internal.
Sanjay doesn't really strike me as much as that. Yeah. I don't know. I have to look more at Marcus Brady outside of his role with the Chargers because it just feels so Greg Roman heavy.
Yeah.
I guess it's by default. It's Andy Bischoff.
He's been a blocking guy most of his time.
I mean, who was the internal guy?
I mean,
probably has to be Marcus Brady.
He at least has experience calling plays. Not that it was like amazing in Indianapolis that one season or season and a half, I guess.
Yeah.
But it would have to be him. He's not fluent in like the Greg Roman stuff. And the problem is that neither is Shane Day, who theoretically would be like that next guy after Marcus Brady. So internally, I don't know if they really have a guy that I feel great about calling plays.
Yeah.
There's no like defensively, like there's at least 2 guys I'd be like, yeah, defensive coordinator, let's go. Offensively, they don't really have one of those guys. Like Shane Day is here because of vibes. Like he loves Justin Herbert as much as we do. And Herbert loves him back. So that's Shane Day's not really a guy I'm like dying to see call plays. He's been a career position coach for like 20 years at this point. So
Yeah.
usually if you're that kind of coach, like you move up, especially as a quarterbacks coach, and that's never really happened for him. Externally, I don't know. I haven't spent a ton of time looking at this just because I don't think that there's really any chance that he gets fired. If he does get fired, we will have an extensive list for you guys for sure.
Yes. Oh, we'll have that's for sure. It will not happen, but that'll be fun. What offenses would you pull from? Like, what's the first thing that come to mind?
I don't know. Not that I watched like a ton of tape on them, but the Cowboys do some really fun stuff right now. And all of the like film nerds, they all talk about how good the Cowboys offense looks. So
yeah.
I don't know if Ben Johnson has like a offensive coordinator that's really good. I'm not super familiar with the Bears staff, but like their run game looks incredible. So those are probably the two that I think are getting like the most pub from a schematic standpoint right now.
Yeah. I don't mind that.
Bob Middleton says, without Eagles' dominant run game, this version of the defense will be a much better fit for the Chargers to win. Eagles' pass game doesn't get wide open looks. Yeah, everything I've heard about the Eagles is that they do a ton of like go routes and a lot of slants and like a lot of like our guys are better than your guys routes, which like they have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I kind of understand that.
Yeah.
The run game just for them has been a significant step down. Like Saquon Barkley, last time I looked was, bottom third in yards over expectation, whereas last year he was like number one by a mile. Lane Johnson has been in and out of lineups. Landon Dickerson has been in and out of the lineup. So there's been some injury issues there too. I think Jurgens, their centers missed some time. So we'll see. I think at the end of the day, like this Eagles group as an offense has shown in the past that they're very capable of flipping the switch and going on an absolute heater. And I'm still nervous about that. Like if the Chargers defense plays the Eagles offense from the last 2 weeks, yes, absolutely the Chargers can win that game. But if this is the flip the switch game, I'm nervous that this could get ugly for the Chargers just because that's the ceiling of the Eagles, man. Like they won the Super Bowl by like 50 points last year. Like they just have a different gear that other teams can't get to.
Yeah. The part that gives me some hope is that Saquon doesn't look like himself, or at least he didn't look like his last year self. If it was an issue in the past game, but Saquon's still Saquon, then we got problems. It hasn't looked like that either. So just run through Dickerson.
Nice job.
Thank you. I really had to think about that to make sure I didn't say it wrong.
Yeah. Yikes. Red Hector 89 says, hey guys, I did my YouTube rap today and found out I'm in the top 0.2% of your listenership. Figured I'd owe you a super chat. Thanks for the excellent analysis and content. I guarantee we beat Philly, he says. Bolt up.
Wow. First of all, thank you for sending in a super chat. I didn't know you could find like what percent of the listenership you are. So that's pretty cool. But thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for chiming in. Guarantee we beat Philly. That'd be fun. I don't know, man. I think the Chargers they look good beating the Raiders. They're off the bye. It was practically their own bye. It's just if Herbert didn't get hurt, I feel much better about this. But I feel better about this game. I really do.
Yeah, Herbert getting hurt definitely throws a wrinkle in it, but like Hampton's coming back now, and we talked about Jamaree, so I'm cautiously optimistic. But just hanging over this game is like, what if the Eagles just turn it on, and that's the big thing. So I understand why Chargers fans are a little bit more optimistic. The Eagles have not looked good, but it's just still looming over it. But big shout out to Hector. We appreciate it. Again, I didn't know that you could do this either. I knew you could do it on Spotify.
Right.
But we appreciate him jumping in here, sending a big super chat, and for all the constant support. We love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man wants to know if this Vidal performance this season is an upgrade over J.K. Dobbins last season. That's a good question.
I think I need to see. Let me look at J.K. Dobbins. Like the overall output is going to be pretty close. My question is, did J.K. Dobbins have more consistent games? And it seems like the answer is yes. not that they were, I mean, he started on a ridiculous tear, but there wasn't like that random, here's 13 yards, here's 20 yards kind of game. So
he only was under 40 yards one time last season.
Yeah. So granted, he got 17 carries in most of those games, but even 6 against Baltimore. I think Vidal is getting to that point. I just need more than every other game to be what it is, because it's strange how every other game is phenomenal, and then there's.
I think JK was probably better at finding like explosive runs. So he had 27 runs over 10 yards. And what's Vidal at this year? He
13.
is at 13. So
Actually,
yeah, 13.
Oh wow, okay.
He had 4 against Miami and then 4 against Pittsburgh. And there's just some games with 0-1-0. So I think Dobbins was better at finding those creases and making those plays happen. That's also kind of his style. Like he hunts for those more so than Vidal does.
Mm-hmm.
I think for this specific offense, it's probably more important that you're more consistent on a down-to-down basis like Vidal is. And Vidal, I think, is absolutely a better pass protector right now. So I would say maybe, but JK last year before he got hurt was super good. Like that Cincinnati game was insane. So it's a tough question because JK was just so much more explosive than Vidal is right now.
Yeah. Yep.
NSN says, please be healthy, Justin Herbert. And he wants to know, should he play?
Oh boy, should he play? I don't know the severity officially, other than what they're saying. I kind of thought Herbert would play out there even if his hand was missing. So should he play? I think so. It seems like they're ready to deal with what it's going to be. And hope he's okay.
Medically speaking, I have no idea how to answer this. I think for me, if Herbert missing this week means that he's closer to 100% healthy for the final 4 games.
Yeah.
I think that probably would be my preference, because this is an NFC game. You don't 100% have to win this game. Whereas if Herbert plays this week at, let's say, 60%, and because he plays this week, that also means like next week is like 70%. That would be the only thing for me, is like, really, how healthy can he be? And if giving him the week off means next week they can go under center and he can hand the ball off with his left hand, all that stuff, I think that's probably my preference. But
yeah,
I understand that Herbert played through rib pain where he could barely walk, and Chase Daniel thought that he was 1,000% starting that week. So I expect Herbert to be out there just because that's who Justin Herbert is. But
yeah, I
would rather have the option to have him fully healthy for the final 4 games as opposed to this game.
Yeah. And again, his reward is Houston and Denver.
Right.
Which sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. F Fawnin 5555 says Q2 was having a heart attack that we were letting them back in the game. Love the show.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't 100% sure what it was at the time. I guess it's kind of good in a way. They did let him back in the game. That kind of lets you know that they'll probably do it again on Monday, even though he did have a procedure.
I think he's specifically saying like letting the Raiders back in the game.
Okay. I take all that back. Rewind. Erase. Yeah, I was having a mild heart attack too. Because at that same time, it was, granted, who was it? Who lost to give the Bears their number 1 seed?
The Rams to the Panthers?
Thank you. Yes, I don't think that had been determined just yet. Either way, point is, if the Chargers had lost to the Raiders the same week where Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel's teams got the first place, were in first place. Oh, and by the way, Sean Payton and the Broncos, who you maybe could have had the previous year, were atop the division, would have been a rough narrative week. we wouldn't do film review. We would maybe be having a big conversation.
Yeah. When they didn't get that fourth down, which was Mekhi Becton's fault, by the way, I was like, oh, what are we doing today, guys? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes you have these games where you just are like really moving the football, and there's like some weird, funky stuff happens at the end of the game, at the end of the drives, and then ultimately, the dominance, kind of ekes out, and that's what happened in the second half. But
Yeah,
when they didn't get that fourth down, I was like, what is going on with this team against bad teams? And then they obviously, figured it out in the second half.
yeah, but it was interception, which none of that I liked. And then was it punt, then downs and touchdown or whatever it was? That was
So Herbert threw the interception, and then Jefferson threw the interception, and then that was the fourth down series.
gotcha. Yeah. When it was 7.5, I don't know, man. That was rough.
Yeah, so the fourth down series, and then the next time they got the ball back, that's when that was the Trey Lance drive, I think. And then the following drive after that was where they had like a minute and 50 seconds left. Crosby gets that sack where he times the snap, and then they threw 2 more passes after that and then punted. That was like, what are we doing? So luckily the Raiders are bad enough where the Chargers figured it out, and that didn't matter.
Yep.
Giovanni Sandoval wants to know if we see Thule becoming Mac's spiritual successor. So they have a ton in common, like from a personality standpoint.
Yeah.
One thing that we loved instantly about Khalil Mack was like, yeah, I'm training in LA because I don't want to go travel anywhere else. Like, I just want to be where I'm at. And then Thule this offseason was like asked if he traveled anywhere. He's like, no, I'm in Southern California. Why would I travel anywhere else? And just like the quiet confidence they play with, and they both kind of have a tendency to during the game turn into a bit of a escalated version of themselves. And Thule's kind of talked about this, where during the week he's like, I don't really talk to anybody, and then game comes out and he's throwing up the tee and he's yelling and screaming and everything like that. So there's a lot of overlap with who they are as people, and I think Thule's obviously had a front row seat for the last 3 years of what Khalil's business is like, and I think yes to answer this question.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know when they'll draft another young edge rusher for him to eventually kind of be that veteran, but it is kind of crazy that if he gets a new deal, that new deal officially starts when he's 25. I mean, that's bonkers. So he'll be in his 5th year as a 5-year veteran at 25.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, which is nuts. I'm trying to think of another more low-key non-edge rusher spiritual successor. I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head. It's not Derwin. It's not Keenan.
Yeah, we're not used to the like quiet edge rusher types. Like Joey was awkward, but he was vocal when he needed to be. Melvin was obviously very vocal. Sean Phillips, Sean Merriman, very vocal. So it's a different thing for us to have 2 very quiet guys be their best edge rushers.
Yes. Usually the quiet guys are Jared Hillary. So who's still in the league.
Yeah, somehow. M Fonin 5555 again asking if Devlin is gone. We've had this question a few times. If there is a coach that is probably they're going to move on from, I do think it is Devlin, but I just think like with all the injuries, I think this staff will get another chance to run it back next year.
I think so. And if Jamaree figures it out, not that he's starting next year, but they'll go, wow, credit to the Devlin. These guys are getting together, and wow, here we go. So if Jamaree plays well, which is good for us, that means Devlin sticks around. And there's an easy out there. Mekhi Becton, wow, that didn't work. Not his fault. Alt, Slater not working out. That's not his fault.
Yeah.
You gave me Bradley Bozeman. And so Zion looks good.
Branson Taylor.
Yeah, fire him for that. No, fire.
Yeah.
Many things to say. This time next year when we do the draft coverage, it'll be nice to be like, oh, by the way, Branson Taylor, when you all were loving that one.
Yeah. Sergio says, don't forget it is a midnight game for the Eagles. So the game starts at 5:15 Pacific time. It might end at midnight Eastern, but it does not start at midnight Eastern.
Yes, but
Starts
it'll
at
be late for them.
Yeah.
If they have the same East Coast problems or West Coast problems that we have as East Coast problems, cool. I'll take every advantage.
Yeah. Zach Pearson says Owe has been quiet. Hopefully he breaks loose this week. I'll be there, and I'm nervous as hell for this game. Who's your key defensive guy this week? Appreciate you guys. Shout out to Zach jumping in here.
Yeah,
I think you and I both agree that like the film for Owe this week was better than the numbers might show.
yeah. I could go through and find at least 3 clips. I'm like, well, that's a pretty good move, and then the ball's out. So there's nothing on him there specifically.
Yeah.
Which is strange because Geno Smith held on the ball and took some sacks too. But I think he's fine.
Yeah, I think he's been very good in the other games this season. So
Yeah.
I'm very much okay with Owe. Who key defensive guy this week? I think it has to be, one of the defensive tackles, given that the strength of the Eagles line is probably right now their interior, just given Fred Johnson is not Lane Johnson. So the games where the Eagles have been able to run the football, it's been, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens and those guys being able to control things in the middle. So it's been a couple quieter games for Tier Tart, and Jamari Caldwell is not having the same kind of impact. So one of the defensive tackles, and it doesn't have to be one of those, any of the defensive tackles, I think has to be forced this week.
Yeah, I think it's whoever's on Devontae Smith. I just think AJ Brown, that whole thing is a weird mess that they're not really going to him. And if Dante Jackson's on him most of the time, I kind of feel good about that. But Devontae Smith has just been a little more electric. It feels like when I'm watching these games, he just makes that play. And so whoever that ends up being, if it's Cam Hart, he needs a better week.
AJ Brown, he has 86 targets on the season. That's way more than I would have thought, just given how things are going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
19th in receptions. I guess they were talking about AJ Brown being like 20th in targets. Is
right.
Alec Pierce has more yards receiving than AJ Brown does.
Pierce has been pretty good, man. I wish they had traded for him.
Yeah, Romo Dunze, Keenan almost has more yards receiving than AJ Brown does.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all what I would have expected for him. And Chargers starting 3, all above 500 yards right now. But yeah, I think, Devontae, I wonder if that's like a Tariq Still matchup. Stylistically, that probably matches up more for him than like Cam Hart does.
Yeah.
Cash Cab 1726 here, Harbaugh and Coward show today. Yes, I watched that. I don't know if Tyler did, but I watched it. There was a bit that sounded like he was taking a shot at Mahomes baiting flags and not getting out of bounds in JH3 We Trust. Keep up the good work, boys. So he was specifically asked about Jackson Dart getting like lit up last night, and if he has to have conversations with Herbert about protecting himself a little bit more. I don't know if it was a shot at Mahomes. It's just like a general shot at like not taking care of yourself as a quarterback. He did also mention regarding Rashawn Slater's injury, a 6-month injury. So that was my big takeaway. I was like, oh
yeah,
6 months for Rashawn Slater would be a full offseason about. So that was the most important thing I think that he revealed during that interview.
Yeah, I didn't hear that specific part about Rashawn. I did read it though, because the chat was saying it. That's great. I mean, anything, if you can at least have him, spring training, that's awesome. So if that's the case, great. He said, I just got to let Justin be Justin. That's generally what Harbaugh has said about Justin.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. Herbert generally has not put himself in harm's way. That was just kind of a weird play where it's almost like he half committed to juking back in, half not. Then Chin just smacked him in the perfect spots. Obviously messed up his hand.
Yeah,
but for the most part, Herbert doesn't. Other than who was the guy who ran over? Was that Titans? He ran over. I mean, he's run over
Titans. Yeah, like at the close to the goal line situation. Yeah.
Oh, that too. And he ran over Jalen Harrell too. I forget what that was. He made like 3 people miss and ran over Jalen Harrell.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Doing anything that's not Jackson Dart.
Yeah, when Herbert is like getting hit as a runner, I'm not like super concerned about it because he does weigh 240 pounds. Like Jackson Dart is not big enough to run the way that he does. And after the game, he was like, yeah, I'm not changing. It's part of the game. I'm like, well, I mean, you could get out of bounds like a yard earlier, my guy.
Dart and Scadaboo, man, the greatest 2-year careers we're going to ever see.
Yeah. There was another play earlier in the season where he like jumped head first at a guy. And I'm like, what are you doing? But kind of who he is, I guess.
So let's see, Jackson Dart. Yeah, 6'2", 223. Not the same.
Not 6'6", 240.
No, not at all.
A little bit different.
Yeah, not at all.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. That 6-month comment about Rashawn, it fired me up a little bit. I was excited to hear that.
I know. We're so close, man. Like, I know this. We're excited for the season still, but like, getting those guys back. 2 of your 3 best players, get them out there.
Yeah, man. If they can just figure out center and right guard next year, I know it's a big if given what we said last year, but yeah, dude, the tackles change a lot. So
yeah, they do.
All right, man. Any other thoughts before we head out?
90-minute show. Let's get out of here.
All right, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Appreciate all the good questions, all the good comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this version of our film review. We'll be back on Thursday for our Eagles preview, and then Monday for our post-game recap. So that's the upcoming schedule. We appreciate the heck out of you guys. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.